So today, what I have thought of is to take the sector of retail and talk about the post-COVID scenario in retail, especially because we are consumers, all of us, right? You, me, all of us are consumers. And as consumers, this is one sector we have closely felt post-COVID, during COVID, and pre-COVID. So all three, pre, during, and post-COVID, this is one sector that has dynamically changed, that has affected our lives, and we were influenced or we felt the change in this sector. So it is very easy for you to relate to this sector and understand what has happened. I'll also take you through the latest, the new formats of retail that is emerging across the globe, which in India, we will of course adapt a little later. So this is going to be my presentation, and sector-wise, it will be purely focused on retail sector. So, but as I told you, you can anytime, all of you, anybody can ask questions to me. I'm absolutely okay with that. So now the current, I'll start with the current, where are we now? Current situation. So I know if somebody wants to ask a question, I know who wants to ask a question. That's right. Okay, now the current today, where are we today in retail sector? Retail sector is the most dynamic and fast-paced among all the sectors in India, and that too, especially after COVID-19. Okay, it is actually, it is booming. In fact, you can see given the figures there, expected to reach a growth of staggering 76.87 lakh crore by the end of 2020. So that is a huge amount of growth expected, revenues expected from this sector by this year end. Revenue generated from online retailing alone is projected to reach $60 billion by 2020. Then India is the world's 5th largest global destination in the retail space. This is a very good information for all of you. We are the 5th largest, global destination for retail space. So that's the reason why a Walmart or why Alibaba, everybody wants to invest in online retailing in India, because we are a huge destination for retail. It accounts for over 10% of the country's GDP and around 8% of the employment. Around 25 million new jobs by 2030 is what NASSCOM report says. So all those who are passing out now and all those who are going to pass out in the next 2 years is like, they really you should look forward to this sector that is going to come up with a lot of job opportunities. I'll also, towards the end of my session, I'll also talk to you about the job opportunities in retail sector. So this is a very, I would say, a very optimistic sector to look forward to now in the near future, retail sector. Now, how it all began. So, as we all know, the olden times, retailing was just your neighborhood, that kirana, we call kirana stores in Hindi, and in South we call, the neighborhood, what you call, the local junction shops, where, there is a, there's a very, whatever I would say, a very good relationship being developed by the seller as well as the consumers. The consumers knew everybody, every household around him in the neighborhood. He used to give, that monthly, I would say that debt was given. You could credit. You could actually buy things on credit every month, and then payment was done in month end or month beginning. So that was the earlier formats of retailing, which all of us are familiar with, right? Your father, mother, your grandfathers all must have done this only, this form of retailing. Now, as in the, by 1980s, when liberalization happened in India, things changed, and we have, we actually have more what you call organized retailing coming in, and especially the big retailers that time was the Bombay Dyeing, Raymond's, the clothing retailers came into picture, 80s. And then as again years went by, Titan came out with the exclusive showroom concepts, and very what you call standalone showrooms by Titan, which was also a changing landscape in retail. And then by 1990s, we have the concept of, the manufacturing to retail sector suddenly grew, and all the grocery standalone shopping centers emerged. So you have your, I've given example, Subiksha, your Nilgiris, all FMCG, completely became as a huge shopping centers by 1990s. And then after post 1995 is what we see, the culture of malls, where we have mall culture, where everything is available under one roof, and the consumer is given value, variety, and volume. Everything is given under one roof. So this is the current scenario, how retailing evolved from a normal neighborhood store where everybody knew, the shopkeeper knew everyone, to the current scenario where it is too large scale. But what are we doing now? So now what has happened, there is a disconnect that is happening with the consumer and the retailer. So this is a reason why analytics is extremely important these days, especially retail analytics. All of us know that when you, before you even buy a shoe in Amazon, Amazon has already kept the shoe ready in its logistics, right, in the supply chain. How do they do that? Anyone can tell how do they do that? How does Amazon know before you buy the shoe? Anybody, any student? So nobody wants to talk about analytics in retail. Okay, so let me only give you the answer also. Okay, now there's something called retail analytics, which maps every consumer. So when you go to, nowadays when you go to a store like More or a Reliance Fresh or Reliance Trend, they ask you your mobile number when they bill you. Okay, now your mobile number is your identity. Okay, and then they track, they completely have a full database of you, who you are, what you are doing, where do you go online. So if you look at online stores like Amazon, they know the moment you go online, they track you. Whatever said about piracy and every privacy is all gone. The moment you are online, you are visible to everybody. And suppose you are doing a search, you're looking at shoes. Okay, in the online, when you go online, you're looking at shoes. They know that this consumer is of Amazon is interested in buying shoes. You have not decided to buy a shoe, but Amazon knows that you will buy a shoe. And what Amazon does is, in its supply chain, your size is made ready. Because the moment you order the shoe will reach you within 24 hours. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you get in the next day itself, right? So this is exactly that what goes behind retailing for consumers, and especially online retailing. And this is why we as consumers love online retailing, because the convenience that it gives you, it understands you much better than anybody else, right? So this is analytics is one area which, as students, marketing students, and should actually move into. I mean, look, learn that also. This is a future. The future is in analytics. Data analytics is become extremely important, because every consumer, knowing every consumer is important for us. For a marketer, every consumer is important. Yeah. So I really like interaction. So if you can't talk, you can even type in chat. I'm looking at chat also. Yeah. Thank you. So this is a scenario of, I said, analytics. Why is I said, if there are courses, there are online. You can go to Coursera, you can go to edX. You can actually learn analytics courses online. There are a lot of nowadays, because of COVID-19. One good advantage is that all of us can learn anything at home, right? People learn instruments. People learn guitar. People learn painting, drawing, everything at home by online courses. So you can also learn anything you want. Just put your mind. And this is one trend that has been observed, that this is the future. So as students of management education, you should be adapting this. Okay, now let us go into some data about the retail segment. So as we all know, there is unorganized and organized segment. Okay, so unorganized are all our local shops. They're not registered. They don't even have a billing system. You go and pay money. The local small shops that's in your neighborhood, they come under unorganized sector. But for our study, we take organized sector. So organized sector. So what is you see that 65% is food and grocery. So in India, food and grocery comprises of 65% of online, so not online, organized retail. Now offline and online together I'm talking, 65%. Followed by apparel and footwear, then consumer durables and IT, then jewelry, then health and entertainment, and then home decor and furnishing, and then beauty and personal care and others. So this is the percentage of market share of different, what you call sectors in retailing, organized retailing. Now look at the growing market. So now you can see there's a blue what do you call the bar graph, it shows the size, okay, of this online retailing. I'm talking now. Now I'm moved into online retailing. How the online retailing is growing. So 2019 was the 33 billion in size, is moved. 2024 is expected to be 86 billion. Okay, so that is the size of online retailing in India. Now again, you look at the growth, 21% growth. It's going to have from 19 to 24. So this is a huge, humongous growth that we are going to expect in this sector. This is a huge, I would say the fast-paced, dynamic growth happening sector. Now, what is happening? So before I go into the last three about Tata's and Reliance, I will tell you the biggest battle for e-grocery. So as I told you, 65% of retail, both offline and online, happens in food and grocery, right? This is a huge chunk of the entire retail sector. Naturally, when there's a huge market available, there's going to be competition, right? So competition is something that this sector cannot avoid. And what we see is something called e-grocery. Competition e-grocery means online grocery segment. In the online grocery segment, you find it's a battlefield there. So you have Reliance. All of you know that Reliance has come in with JioMart. JioMart, and you know what happened to telecom sector once Jio came in, right? Where is Vodafone? Where is Airtel? Right? What they even had to merge, right? So that is the scenario that when Reliance enters the sector, other companies get scared because Reliance comes with huge investment and huge resources, okay, and they can give at a lower price. And India being a price sensitive market, we all go behind the lower prices, right? So that is why what we find here is that Reliance has come in with Reliance JioMart, okay, and Reliance already has Reliance retail outlets, which all of us know. So that is one major entry into the online retail grocery segment. Then what we have Amazon. Of course, what has Amazon done? Amazon has taken over more, Aditya Birla's more. It has got around 600 of more stores there, and it has also some stake in Future Retail. Okay, so Future Retail, Amazon has got. So Amazon is there, Reliance is there. Then Walmart, what is Walmart? Why should Walmart be left behind, right? Walmart was not allowed to enter India directly. So what Walmart has done, it has done a tie-up with Flipkart. So that combination is there. Flipkart Walmart combination is there. And then now who has entered? The last entrant is Tata's. Tata's is entering the online grocery space with tie-up with, they're going to get tie-up with Big Basket. And Alibaba has investment in Big Basket. So we have got that four major players, that is Tata's, Reliance, Walmart, and Amazon. These four major players in the online e-commerce grocery segment in India. And you can imagine the battle that is going to take place there. And DMart, one of the second largest physical retailer of India, is also planning to move into what you call into that this segment of e-grocery. So when these five major players are going to fight for the market share, ultimately who will get the advantage? Now this question one of you will have to answer to me. In a highly competitive market or industry, who gets the advantage? Anybody can put in the chat also. Yes, very good, Alamin. Yeah, Amin is very good, very right. So that is the consumer gets the advantage. Very correct. So when we are very happy when competition happens in the industry, right? Because they're going to cut down prices, and ultimately we are going to benefit. But what is happening to these companies? They're going to incur losses, because how much can you give at a discount? How much loss can you bear? Until of course you are a Reliance, or you have got billions of money being pumped by venture capitalists into your business. Like how does an Ola survive, or how does a Flipkart survive? Because of the billions of investment done by all the investors, right? So you either need that, otherwise it becomes very difficult to survive. So this is again, like I'm telling you about the current scenario of retail industry in India, especially online retailing. So highly competitive market. Now, what is expected in the future? So we can see that now, according to this, the WOC data. So it says that in India, e-commerce net sales. So in future, they're predicting Flipkart to increase sales than Amazon. Currently, it is Amazon that is leading Flipkart, but prediction is is going to be Flipkart. That's going to increase the sales. Okay, now this is the current scenario that I told you about. What we are, highly potential industry, huge competition. Online grocery is a battlefield. This is the current scenario. Now let us go back to what happened during COVID. Okay, COVID struck the world. All of us know, 1 year over. March 17th, we had a lockdown. Okay, with some virus in China came to India and all of us got affected. Yeah. So the world saw the greatest disruption after World War. Airports were silent. Restaurants were shuttered. Okay, everything in limbo. Yeah. Okay, Ajim. Yeah. So how does a good question. How does this e-commerce affect the rural? What do you call grocery sales? That's what his question is, right? Let me just take the chat one second. Okay. Now, what has Amazon done now? Amazon has got something called Amazon Pantry. What do you know what they've done? This Amazon Pantry is tying up with local kirana stores. So you tie up with the local stores and then you sell your products. This is one of the brilliant ideas of Amazon. So suppose I want to buy my sugar and my atta or my my basic groceries. I want it today. I can't wait like a big basket does for 24 hours supply, right? I may need it today. So how do I get it today? I get it today when I have a tie-up with a local kirana grocery. So this is what Amazon does. Of course, rural retailing now e-commerce, this online groceries have also penetrated the rural India. Okay, and they are going into rural India also. Every rural the mobile phones have penetrated rural India a lot, and sales also is going towards rural India, and they are become very tech savvy now. There is a language, multiple languages can be used in mobile phones now. Amazon has launched a voice generated app which can be even we can even use voice to order the products. So this is a next level of Amazon shopping, where you can even talk and order products. This is all for multilingual countries like India, where there's no common language. So of course, rural India is not being considered. When I talk about this e-commerce effect, it's about only urban India. I'm not talking about the rural India, statistics data given here. I'm not going to rural India. The rural India is a complete different scenario. Okay, that data is not shown here. But of course, online grocery penetration is there in rural India, definitely there. If you ask opinion, of course, why do you think government stopped Walmart or a Carrefour or a Tesco to come to India directly? This is the answer is your question. So if a Walmart comes to India, if you allow a Walmart to come to India, a Walmart is going to offer every Indian with the lowest pricing. And then, the small scale unorganized retailer is going to get shut. It's going to shut his business. He's going to lose his business and he's going to lose his his daily his income, right? So that is the reason government has protected the small scale retailers, and we have not allowed the large international retailers to come to India directly. That is excellent. And Reliance Jio is doing that. Once Reliance Jio comes into the market, definitely it is going to affect every small retailer. That is truth. What you're saying is true. And until government takes some measures to protect these small scale retailers or the unorganized sector retailers, they're going to be in huge trouble. That is the truth, sir.
Okay, madam. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now, as I said, as we were talking about the COVID effect, the COVID actually came into a picture and the world stood still. Retailing was dead. Okay, nobody was going to a shop. So you imagine suddenly a scenario when nobody was coming to a shop to buy things. They were scared to come, right? But then what has happened? This COVID-19 became a catalyst for change in retailing. So this is one sector that has actually, it has come out of it. Like a phoenix, it has risen from the ashes, we can say it. Though it was completely, offline retailing was completely dead, but then they've adapted. Okay, so as human beings, as a species, we adapt. This is exactly what retailing has done. They have adapted to the new COVID or the post-COVID scenario. And we will see what the changes that has happened as consumers. So as consumers, each of us know how we have changed. There's something called the new normal. We will never go back to the old us, right? We have changed. For example, we have become more hygiene conscious. We wash our hands frequently. We want social distancing to be maintained. In the earlier, a store or a restaurant which was crowded was seen to be good. We will go to a store or a restaurant which is crowded. Now what we do? We don't go into the store, right? We don't want crowd. So exactly the human behavior has changed. As consumers, we have completely changed in our behavior. So now retailing has adapted. They also have changed. So now first I'll go to the changes that has happened in the consumers. This is based on a Nielsen study. Consumers behavior thresholds post COVID. So we can see I just picked up 6 major changes that has happened to consumers post COVID or because of COVID. The first one is we have become proactive, health-minded buying. That means we seek out things that is good for us. Now, this is a reason I'm sure all of us are seeing advertisements where what is a major word that is used? Immunity boosters. Okay, whether it is a atta, it is a tea, or it is any product you take, they have this. Suddenly, every product has immunity boosters, and they all say that. And I don't know how many of you noticed it. They say, and all the disinfectant like Lysol and Dettol, everyone says it kills coronavirus. Now, coronavirus is actually a flu-causing, it's a normal virus that all of us get. Corona we all get because it's a normal cold virus. But COVID-19, nobody talks about, no campaign talks about COVID-19 virus. I don't know how many of you observed that. If you're not observed, please keep observing the advertisement again. Okay, all this, so we are actually getting fooled by these campaigns. And everything, every product, a biscuit to an atta to a tea has immunity boosters. Now, this is a marketing gimmick by companies, of course, brands, because but the reason they do it is because we have become very proactive in our health consciousness. We want to be healthy. We want to build an immunity against this virus. Okay, and as marketers are, they are making use of the situation because we as consumers are getting fooled. But consumers have become very conscious about health consciousness. Okay, so that is what. So all as a first effect is that. Second effect is that which has happened to consumers is like we have become reactive again, proactive and reactive. Reactive is what? Wearing masks, sanitizing, washing hands. So during COVID-19, from the Big Bazaar, the data said that the maximum sales happened in hand washers, sanitizers. Every brand has moved into sanitizers now. Which when you go to a shop, you can see that, right? There are all brands have, because that is a huge category that has got huge sales. So wherever there is a potential for sales, brands enter that category. So that is what is happening now. So they all moved into sanitizers. So that is a it's a reactive thing. So once we know this is a way to keep safe, we all start buying masks, buying sanitizers, washing hands, and this is required also. We need that. Third one is called pantry preparedness. Now, if you look at ethicality of consumers, do you think that stockpiling means hoarding, is correct? No, right? As human beings, do you like to hoard things in your house? Like, do you buy packs of 15 kg sugar, 20 kg sugar, and keep in the house, which is unethical? Because if you get the chance to go into the shop first, what do? You go and buy the entire 20 kg sugar and bring it home. Now, this is what we are doing. We have become so scared of unstock or unavailable products. We have started stockpiling. Stockpiling means piling up stock in the house, in the pantry, in the kitchen especially. So when you go out, you tend to buy more. The quantity you purchase is increased. Earlier, we could go frequently and buy things. Now the frequency is reduced because of social distancing and because we don't want to go out of the house. So when we go, we buy in bulk and come home. And we are okay with it. Okay, we have changed. We don't feel guilty. You can even, so it is said that you may even take the last pile of your toilet paper or something very useful, like a milk packet. Suppose you are in the store and you find there are 5 packets of milk available in the store. You take all 5 packets and come home. You are not bothered about whether the next consumer is having it or not. And this is okay now. Sadly, this is okay. And then, of course, quarantine living preparedness. That means, of course, we have like earlier, sir also said, like online payments, online shopping. Many of our parents who were not so comfortable in online payment methods because they never trusted online payments, but they had to do it, right? So online payment gateways became a way of life, especially because of It is called the quarantine because we are quarantined. We are nothing. We had no option but to go for online payments. Then the next behavior that is emerging is minimalism. Minimalism means now we have realized we wasted money on a lot of unnecessary things during our, when before COVID, right? So now consumers have become more cautious about their spending. Also because economy, many of them have lost jobs. Many of them salaries have been cut. So there is a shortage of disposable income in the economy, and consumers have become very cautious, very restricted purchasing, minimalism. So we don't spend money unnecessarily now. Okay, that is again a trend that has been observed. And the last one, of course, is a new normal. So we have become the new normal. We may never go back to being the old consumers. We will again, whatever we have learned in this experience of this pandemic will stay with us as consumers. And so based on these 6 major trends, retailing has also shifted. I'll just go to the new retail formats now. Some of the data, again, walk-based data. So we can see the global activities after post-COVID-19 was, so 40% says that, their shopping online has increased, okay? And exercise at home, okay? People couldn't go for gyms or aerobic centers or health centers. So they have started exercising at home, 43%. 41% is, I say, the payments, their online payments have started. So you can see that, this is a major change that's happened across globally to all consumers. Again, shopping, e-commerce, shop online more frequently after the outbreak. That means personal consumers who shop more frequently. So you can see that, this is based on the age group. So Gen Z, 51%. We can say that millennials has 50%. Gen X, that means every age group we find, that they have actually started shopping more online. And this is the most interesting data. So this is we can see India has a shop online more frequently after the outbreak. So based on countries, we find India is the highest. India has 59% of consumers going online shopping, followed by China and South America. So India has actually changed a lot in the what you call post-COVID scenario. As consumers, we have really changed. We have moved completely into online shopping. Now, as I told you, now I'm coming to the last part of my presentation, that is the retail formats, the new formats that has been emerging in the world because of the changes in consumers and because of the post-COVID effect. So as I told, consumers have changed, shopping experience have changed because of the COVID effect. Okay, the first effect in retail formatting, the first change is health measures. Every retailer has to make sure that they're giving a very safe environment to the consumers. Okay, consumers will turn to shopping experience that promote actions that will safeguard them from virus, germs, and other modern aggressors. That means you cannot keep a place unsafe and expect consumers to walk in. That will never happen. So you have to change your store formatting. You may have to limit number of consumers inside the store. You may have to take up many measures. The store has to be sanitized frequently. You may have to sanitize the hands of the consumers. You may have to give them gloves. So there are multiple things that a retailer should do to ensure that the consumers walk into the store. I've given you 3 examples here. This is all from US. Lane Crawford, there's a beauty salon. What they do is they include requiring customers to sign a health statement prior to receiving beauty treatments, and gloved service for any human interaction or handling of cash. So this salon makes sure that you give a health statement that you are COVID negative. Only if you get a COVID negative certificate, you are allowed entry into the salon, because salon is a place where there is a lot of physical contact happens. Right. Apple, what has Apple done? Apple stores, they state that they're putting safety first. As stores reopened by providing masks for customers and restrict the number of at any time. So the Apple stores give masks to consumers. If the consumer is not wearing mask is provided, and number of consumers in the store is limited. Okay, now over time, see, virus sapping, deep cleaning, high-tech air purifiers, and protective clothing will become the norm in every shopping retailer. And so, the old landscapes will change, and this will become the norm for us. This is the first change. So, safe environments. Second is contact free payments and designs. So the pandemic has accelerated the adoption of contactless payment around the globe, even in countries that were once very like India, which we never went in for online payments, but now that is the norm now. Okay, I've given you some again examples. Mastercard. Mastercard reports 40% increase in the contactless payments. And then that's tap, tap to pay. The cards that come with tap to pay, yeah, that is it. So that is a 40% increase. People want tap to pay. They don't want to key in the pin in the device, because that is a contact that's created, right? Everything that's contactless is being encouraged. Amazon, I'm sure you must have seen the video of Amazon Go, that is cashless payments. You can just go to the Amazon store, pick up your stuff, put in your bag, and walk out. You don't have to pay. Okay, that is again AI working there, artificial intelligence. So then the last one I told you again. See, now there's a company in UAE. There's a designing. So they have headquarters of Biha, an environment company in Sharjah in UAE, aims to eliminate the need for touch entirely. They're designing the building that way. The building is smartphone activated, allowing users to call elevators and even order coffee through the device. So you can actually call. You don't have to touch the elevator button. If you want to go to the 12th floor, you can just use your phone to do that. You can also order coffee. You don't have to take the phone and pick up the intercom and call and order coffee. You can use it through your mobile phones. And even doors, you can open doors, shut doors by your mobile phones. Because mobile phone is your personal gadget, which you use right every day. So that is safe, but you don't want to touch other places. So imagine you're going and standing in an elevator, and you can just voice activate the elevator, take me to the 11th floor. That is safer, right? Than switching up, than pressing the 11th floor key. This is a new thing. That's the contactless. Everything has to be contactless now, maximum, minimum. So now you'll find buildings changing. You'll find everything getting changed now for contactless. Distance, social distancing, distance store formats. The in-store environment experience will be less touchy and more spacious. So that is, so earlier, a big bazaar, or a food bazaar, when you go to a mall or a Reliance, you'll find it's crowded, right? The aisles are so small, they just stuff things. But now that cannot be so. You need to give space to consumers. Social distancing is a norm. If you don't have a space, if you have a crowded shop, consumers are not going to walk into the shop is crowded. So in Germany, the Berlin Ensemble has removed 500 of the 700 seats at the historical Schiffbus. What is it? It's actually a theater. So in the theater, they have removed chairs. Okay. So here, what in India we do is we keep one chair in between. We just block one chair, right, in between the seats. But there, they've actually removed chairs. Nobody can sit in the theaters. So they removed almost 700 to 500 to 700 chairs. Seats have been removed. So WeWork has announced they will de-densify lounges and meeting rooms. So again, de-densify means removing the chairs. Then again, shift architecture has actually is a concept of local outdoor micro market based on 16 square grid using barriers and tape to create zones for shoppers. So every shopper is given a separate zone to shop, a separate 16 what you call a square grid. So there you feel safe in the grid. So these are all the new things that retailing is doing to make consumers come to the shops. Okay, this all of us know appointment. So did we ever think that you will book appointment and go to a store? We book appointments and go to doctors, right? Or a saloon, but we never book appointments and go to a store. But that we are doing that today, right? So if you want to go to a store, like maybe a Tanishq, you want to buy jewelry from Tanishq, you have to call Tanishq, get an appointment and go. Okay, that is actually happening in India also. Okay, reduced in-store capacity and have forced us to drive appointments for stores. In May, consumer electronics retailer Best Buy started offering appointments in-store service visit, giving customers one-to-one attention during the half an hour. And I'm sure in Bombay, what was happening was we had to take tokens. So morning we had to go and stand in queue if it's DMart or Reliance or a more, and we had to get tokens. And then the token number will have a time, and every customer is given half an hour. So they only allowed 5 consumers in the store, and so that was the time given to you to shop. So the earlier you go, you get the first. If you get the first entry, you get all the products. So if you are lazy to get up in the morning and you reach to get the token late, naturally the store is empty. By the time it's afternoon, the store is empty because everybody has come in and taken everything, right? So this was the scenario. So the appointment, so that you have to take tokens or you have to fix up appointments to actually visit stores now. Things have changed. Health consciousness and personalized shopping service. We want personalized shopping services now. Because health consciousness is a priority for us. We have to be healthy. We are very, very focused on our health. Support well-being. So examples, again, I've given two examples. Gen Z beauty brand launched self-care sit-down, a personal one-to-one 15-minute session. So some brands, some beauty brands have taken into the extreme of, one-to-one customer counseling to how to be healthy. And they also give personalized, food habits, food diet plans, personalized exercises, how to actually remain healthy. So brands have moved into from, there's like, what you call them vertically, they moved into expansions, okay? Or sort of, I would say, a market expansion or product expansions to health sectors also. Wellness brand Ro launched a free COVID-19 telehealth assessment in March. So they have a mobile phone telehealth assessments. So that has been launched by many brands. And Walmart and Target are offering in-store COVID-19 test. So you can go to a Walmart or a Target and actually get a COVID-19 test. So these are all measures taken by retailers to make sure that the consumers are taken care of. Their health is taken care of. The last one, of course, is minimalism, which I have told you before. Conscious consumerism and minimalism. So anti-excess shopping mindset will emerge. We don't want a lot of things now. We have realized that many things that we purchased before are all useless. We will only buy the essential things. Now, one more interesting factor is during the COVID-19, we also realized there is a new category called essential items. Okay, so before that, we never knew this essential or necessity items. Like these are the groceries, and this essential items always had demand. They did not, have a sales drop. Their sales was booming, in fact, essential items. Only the supply chain had some issues. Making it available was a problem, but otherwise demand for essential items was there. And when you go to visit a mall or when you visit a big shopping center during that time, all the other products were not sold. It was all the counters, it was given not sold. Only essential items were sold. For example, a counter of stationery, it was written not sold because stationery was a non-essential item. So this was again a term that evolved during this time, and consumers realized that essential and non-essentials are two different categories. And Reebok is one example, which is a brand. It partnered with resale platform, clothing platform, tied up, and then Reebok is a very good brand, a very well-known sports brand. But see how it has moved to a resale clothing, tied up with a resale clothing brand, so that you can actually bring down the cost of your retail, lifestyle clothing part. So even same thing has been done by Gap and Macy's also, and Nordstrom. They all have gone into resale clothing. So you actually get old clothes of consumers and then you resell it. So this is you adapt or resell it. This is what has happened, has been done by many retailers. So this is so what I was talking to you was how consumers have changed post-COVID and how retail formats have changed post-COVID to attract consumers to the store. Now the last is the technology in retail. So as I've been mentioning, technological changes post-COVID is something that we just can't avoid. It is a very essential part of any sector, technological changes. So we all know about M-commerce. M-commerce is mobile commerce. Now mobile commerce is moved over now. It is now into social commerce. Social commerce is through your social networking sites. So you are going to now the next thing is the marketing is going to take place through your Facebook, your WhatsApp, your Instagram. Now WhatsApp became a very big popular tool during COVID-19 again. Even the small roadside vendors who did not have any way of technology, they used to actually promote their business through WhatsApps, and that became a huge hit. I myself have experienced that. In Bombay, we have roadside vegetable vendors. They are completely unorganized sector, but what they did was they started sending messages to people whom they know that these are the products available, and they were also willing to come to your doorstep and deliver the products for you. So this was a service that given by unorganized sector, which really worked. WhatsApp became a very big tool for unorganized sector. Then, of course, live streaming. This is a very big new trend coming in retail. China is using it very well, live streaming. I'll show you the video of China's live streaming. You can see it, how it happens. It is actually, live streaming is nothing, but it is talking about the product, live demo, live, what do you call, display of products, talking about the product. Negotiation of price happens like in this scenario. This can be done in a studio, or sometimes it can be done in the store also, live streaming. And China has moved after COVID-19. China sales is happening through live streaming only. Now India will soon go into live streaming very soon. So I'll just show you an example of what happens in China. I hope you can hear it. Yeah. I'll make it bigger for you.
This is China's new concept for e-commerce plus entertainment. It's called Entertainment. It features live streams that generate billions of dollars each year. China is home to more than 900 live streaming platforms and over 10 million active hosts. In 2017, they brought in more than $4.5 billion in revenue. In Guangzhou, we're going to visit one of the top 5 multimedia companies in the city. At the west, it's the basement of the commercial center. Let's go check it out. Hyphen may be a very small company with only 40 staff, but here they train and use star models or key opinion leaders to help them sell products that are worth millions of dollars every year. 今天之后大神10来帮你带下数字完全。哇哦，欢迎我们的 Lisa， 悠悠你好，是你，是你。在哪里？你看工作就是坐在这里啊，化好妆，漂漂亮亮的坐在这里，然后就看到然后里面会有很多动物来看我们直播，我们就跟他们聊天，实时互动。Users can sponsor the hosts by sending virtual gifts which can be exchanged for cash. 谢谢，谢谢龙哥，感谢龙哥。Want to earn million Zoom earns about 10,000 yuan per month, about $1,500 as a live stream host. 有时候会唱唱歌，包括跳跳舞之类的，就跟大家分享一些亲情、玩家，也会分享球坛和这个事情，就相当于一个陪伴吧。我们一般是下午3点开播，然后呢到晚上2点，4个小时会休息一下。
这是一个其实蛮好，这就是年轻人。
Yeah. So this is what I was talking to you about live streaming. I just wanted to show you what live streaming is, because live streaming is like you have a studio where the products are being shown by like host. We call her a host, and she explains the products to the consumers, and the consumers see the product, they negotiate the price, they also find out how it look. Suppose you wear the product. So this is a new trend that is going to taking place in China, which of course India can take over this idea and because this doesn't require the consumers to visit the store. So you can see how the dress fits you, or how the bag looks like. You can ask the girl to explain everything to you, show the bag. So it is more of a connect happening than just seeing the product, than a video stream. Then third thing I want to talk to you is about engaging consumers through gaming. Now, during lockdown period, the gaming industry actually took a boom again, doubled in fact. Okay, people started gaming a lot, and it has been also said that 36% of consumers of gaming said that they buy those brands that they see in the games. So that is a huge market platform to actually use. So through brands selling or marketing through games is now again going to be the next move. Now AI, artificial intelligence, which I just talked to you about Amazon. It is coming big time. Again, Amazon is using it big time. For example, as I told you, voice activated sales. So you can just order through a voice, and you can actually get things in Amazon. That's again a new direction of Amazon coming up. Now the last thing which I thought that I want to leave you with is Alexa does shopping. Alexa can do shopping for you. And so tomorrow when you market, are you going to market to a human being or are you going to market to a machine? So Alexa can definitely understand your shopping list. So if every month you have a similar shopping list, Alexa can reorder the shopping list for you. It can even choose between two offers. Suppose Pepsodent has an offer of 10% and Colgate has an offer of 15% discount. Alexa can choose Colgate if it's being fed, right? So that is how artificial intelligence is going to work in the future. Now I will leave you with a very weird video of how a parrot, a cockatoo parrot, has ordered through Alexa. So tomorrow, are we as consumers or as marketers? Is our consumers machines, human beings, or even animals? That is what I want to leave you with. I'll just show that video now. This is a news item.
Kicked out of a British animal sanctuary for using foul language, figures out how to use technology to cause trouble. Rocco, an African